Dead Draw Gaming. Like no one ever was.
Hello there, everyone. We are back at the 2018 Madison Regional Championship. I am here with my boy Kirk. Kirk, how you doing?
Doing good, my man. Good to be paired up with you in the booth. First time for everything. They've got their headsets on. They've got their decks. We are ready to go. Let's talk about what they're playing today. Might be a wonky matchup,
This seems
to
like
say the least.
It's going to be a little silly. So here on the left, we've got Zach Lesage. You know, people know him. He did pretty well. I think he's in top 16 of North America, right? I think he's doing pretty well this season.
If he's not, he's very close. He's very close.
So we've got him playing this quad attacking Hoopa deck, you know? What do you know about this deck, Kirk?
So quad attacking Hoopa, something that kind of rose to prominence, we'll say, kind of in middle of quarter three, before Buzzwole got all these new tools and really started developing and becoming kind of like the hot new item. However, given on how the metagame has changed, the Buzzwole decks have developed to make room for these Forbidden Light cards. Attacking Hoopa has carved itself out as just back in the metagame to attack these top three decks we've been talking about all day. And you might be asking, how does it get around that baby Buzzwole? It's because they're playing weakness policy now.
Weakness policy.
It has it gives the Hoopa deck so much leg to finish out the long race that is an attacking Hoopa match. Simply because, as we were discussing earlier, Buzzwole decks have started cutting Field Blower.
Yep.
So once that bad boy locks in, it is on.
When it's down, it's down. It's there. You know, they got Acerolas. They pick it back up, put it back down. You know, it's not like they just have a few weakness policies. They got all these cards to reuse them. You know, they got the Oranguru. They put them back in the deck. It's like, you know, they may only have a few, but if you're playing against it, it feels like they got all of them. They got 10. You know, they're all the time. It's something you got to deal with. So.
Emmet playing something that you all at home are probably a little bit more familiar with hearing. Co-commentator Russell Lepar top-aided, I believe it was in Collinsville, with Zorark Galissapod.
Yes.
And Emmet's got a heck of a task in front of him.
He does. I mean, this Zorark Galissapod deck, you know, it was kind of the first big Zorark deck we saw break out, you know, won that London Intercontinental Championship. And it's always a deck that you see do very well at the beginning of new formats because they're kind of chaotic. People are like figuring out what's good, what's okay, what's not good, and it's one of those decks that doesn't do anything super well, but it does everything. It's got draw, it's got heal, it's got all of these gust effects. You know, Galissapod is just a very efficient attacker, so you know it's always good in these kind of like blind metagames where people are still figuring out what they're doing, and it's doing all right for Emmet so far.
Yeah, 5-1-1. We've decided for round 8 and 9 to really focus on people that can kind of win out to make day 2. That's kind of where the excitement is. You know, there's obviously some great matchups at the top tables with people that have been performing very well today. However, the stakes are a little bit lower when you're 7-0 and you kind of know that you're in day 2, regardless of the outcome. So we're really hindering on these 5-1-1s, trying to find something that we haven't put on camera today, and that led us to Zach Lesage in this attacking Hoopa deck.
We're in the business of watching dreams being created and broken in moments. So you know.
Emmet's world is about to get turned upside down once he realizes that attacking Hoopa sits in front of him. Because we're going through his list here, and what are his actual options to combat this?
If you look at that Hoopa on Zach Lesage's bench with him going first, you read that ability, you go, what can Emmet attack with? Well, he's got that Wimpod in the active. That's all right. I mean, it's got 3 energy. It does not a lot of damage. Not very good. He's got Zeruas, you know, those don't do a lot either. So you got to look at something a little bigger, something that can take a hit from that Hoopa. He's only got 2. That's half as many Hoopas as Zach's got.
Yep.
And it's a Mewtwo from Evolutions, as we see Zach actually started with one of his own, and the Tapu Koko promo.
He's going to have to do a lot of work with that Tapu Koko promo, a lot of work with that Mewtwo, which Hoopa's resistant to. You know, we're going to see Fury Belts come down. Weakness policy's not going to get a lot of mileage here.
Mewtwo Wars.
That's true.
Weakness policies is Mewtwo's.
Just Emmet has got to be just a bit defeated that his tournament is kind of hinging on that. A clean enhanced hammer to get that DCE off and really stem the bleeding that may have not have started quite yet, but that wound's going to get big and it's going to be opened up real quick.
I mean, if he's going to win this game, that start, you know, Bridget straight out of the hand, not even putting Lele down, the enhanced hammer, those are 2 good ways to get out of the gate, you know. Zach actually didn't play a supporter, so maybe Emmet's thinking, I could steal a game, you know.
he's got to be thinking positive here to give himself any sort of opportunity, because I think something needs to go drastically wrong on Zach's side for him to not come out with this one. So we see the Bridget for the Tapu Koko promo. That's the flying flip one that we're familiar with a free retreat. Wimp out into it.
Turn one. Flying flip.
Yep. He's probably going to set up those Zoruas and set up the Zoroarks, which won't be able to damage Hoopa. However, he does need to trade to get through his resources to be able to try and leverage this Tapu Koko promo. I have a good feeling we're going to be puzzling for it maybe once, probably twice.
Yeah, and you know, the Tapu Koko, it can do a little bit. You know, I don't think that Zach actually plays a way to one-shot it. You know, the Super Psybolt does 80. Fury Belt makes it 90. Even if he plays a Kukui, which I don't think we saw one.
Not in the list today.
He can't reach that 110. So, you know, there could be a world where Emmet just kind of like spreads, Acerola spreads, maybe clean something. Like, you know, Mewtwo doesn't do a lot, but it'll do 20, 40, 60, 80, 60. So, you know, 3 spreads that Mewtwo can clean up, and then Mewtwo's going to be not easy to knock out for Zach either.
Exactly. We see Zach on his turn just DCE, Guzma, let's get Zorua off the board. Zach very aware that Emmet's draw capability throughout the game is the only way he's going to be able to kind of leverage what is this bad matchup.
Exactly. You know, he's got to just put all those pieces in place to kind of like make sure he has exactly what he needs when he needs it. So if he can get 3-4 Zoroarks out, they can't attack, but they can make sure everything else is attacking when they need to.
Exactly. There's actually, you know, we're kind of going through the paces here. Zach's drawing a card, just as stacking damage. Emmet will probably be trying to sort his hand out so he can put himself in a position to rescue this Tapu Koko and really rinse, repeat, as you said, until we get that damage built up on that Hoopa. However, a way that the Golisopod Zoroark deck used to be able to handle this matchup was with Oranguru from Ultra Prism and use resource management and its Acerola capability to just essentially counter-mill the mill deck.
Yep.
Unfortunately for Emmet, he went ahead and left the monkey at home. We're not going to see a showing from it on his side of the board today.
Nope. But, I mean, and Zach's got one of his own, so, you know, it's even going to be a little bit more difficult for Emmet to kind of run him out of things. Because, you know, Zach, worst case scenario, he goes, oh, man, things aren't looking good. I guess I'll just shuffle 3 Hoopas back in my deck, or, you know, Hoopa Dark DC, and now one can attack, right? So.
Yep. So as we, as Travis, as you mentioned before, Mewtwo coming down now, it's going to be a critical part of this game plan. Depending on the composition of Emmet's hand, might just let this Tapu Koko die, just simply so we can get another spread in. Interesting play there, just kind of hiding behind the Zoroark.
Yep.
And it becomes clear as day now. Guzma, let's try and get this Mewtwo stuck. Put the screws to Zach a little bit. Let's keep Koko spreading.
I mean, the only supporter that Zach has played so far is that Guzma. So Emmet's got to be thinking, you know, did Zach make that Guzma play because he's like, I'm trying to kill that Zorua? Or is it because that's the only supporter he had? Exactly.
We see Hoopa coming off the top for Zach. I'd be remiss to say if that didn't come down. We see an Acerola special charge, weakness policy, as we were mentioning, and Oranguru Prism. A lot of the stuff we've been highlighting. And we see the very fragile game plan of Emmet swiftly falling apart. Mewtwo probably not coming back down to become a Guzma target for stall, much like that last turn. Knockout on Tapu Koko. Mewtwo comes up. Where do we go from here, Travis?
So, I mean, Emmet, he's got to be at least excited that he's getting a knockout here. Now, what he's doing right now with that grass and that EC, he's actually opening himself up to getting Respawn KO'd by Zach's Mewtwo. So, you know, that's got to make Zach feel like, okay, there's something else I can do, and he's got to be even more happy he's getting end here.
Yeah, he hasn't shown that he's got a lot going on. However, that's just how oppressive this Hoopa deck can be if you're not ready to take it on. It just doesn't matter how much Zach is doing, as long as he's doing a little bit of something, that'll take him a long way.
And you know, Emmet's got to be looking. He's thinking, okay, Zach's got that Mewtwo in his hand. I got to put this DC down. I don't want him to respond, knock me out. You know, because he'll have it. It's a DC. You know, so you know he's got that. You're putting him at 4. His deck's still very big. Maybe he's got a lot of that fluff that, you know, he really can't. You know, he's got to work through in order for his deck to be good. Maybe he's not ready to be down this low hand size wise, right? You know, so.
Exactly. A Fighting Fury Belt coming off the top of that end for Zach, maybe a little bit late. However, I still think Zach feels like he's in a comfortable spot here. simply because there's a lot of pressure now on this Mewtwo to start taking knockouts. Guzma, the Zoroark, for a little stall action, so maybe he can wall up another Hoopa. I believe he has a Sycamore there. He's kind of riffling his hand pretty quick. Not sure if he's going to be going all in on that next turn. The one copy of Floatstone showing up in prime time for Emmet right now.
So it's interesting to me that Emmet actually, he went for the Mewtwo play here, because Mewtwo actually isn't doing damage because of that resistance, and we see he has both of those puzzles in his hand, so he could have just pulled the Coco out and started doing 20, you know.
Yep.
It's not the best, but it's not really all he's got, you know. It doesn't seem like there's a whole lot else he can do, really.
So something to note here, I'm looking a quick look through Zach's deck. He does not play any field blowers. So the one copy of Floatstone that Emmet has gotten down on that Zoroark is good for is down, and it's solid for the rest of the match, which will give Emmet a great pivot point to keep getting back into his Coco or his Mewtwo, depending on what stage he is in applying pressure. That's a rough DCE discard, I gotta feel like, for Emmet.
Yep. And now we're seeing kind of what we thought we may have seen last turn. You know, maybe Emmet didn't realize, Mewtwo's actually not doing any damage at all to this Hoopa, so now I have to switch it up, you know.
I would have bet my bottom dollar I saw a Sycamore in his hand. It looks like it was actually an Acerola.
Got it.
A couple Max Elixirs that obviously can't do much when you have nothing on your bench. And if I'm Zach, I think my brow's getting a little sweaty right now, because this is not how he drew this up.
This is not at all. I mean, like, there's a Sycamore. He doesn't care. I mean, you know, even worst case scenario, he's got to be thinking, you know,
let me hit a nest ball. Let me get a Hoopa down.
You know,
let me do anything.
That Coco's only doing 20 damage, so he's got turns at least, you know, and that Mewtwo's not doing damage unless the Hoopa's attacking, and the Hoopa's not attacking unless Zach wants it to attack, so he's got a lot of control, at least with that respect, to you know, how this kind of can swing tempo-wise.
It looks like the floodgates have really opened for Zach here. We have a nest ball in hand, a Hoopa in hand. We've got a Sycamore for next turn, Latios if he wants it, and a special charge to recycle a DCE. Because we know he got rid of two, the enhanced hammer turn and the knockout turn. So Zach kind of feeling the pores becoming unclogged a little bit here, and he can employ his game plan as we all thought would happen from turn one.
The only thing that I could see causing him issue right now is off of that Sycamore. You know, he had to play, he got to draw some cards, but he actually lost 2 of his Max Elixirs, and he played one early. So, you know, if Emmet can put a little more pressure on, you know, maybe there's a world where he kind of catches Zach behind on attachments and, you know, can get a couple extra spreads off because of that.
And that's another thing that the resource management Oranguru on the Galissabot Zoroark side can do. You can help him recycle puzzles and E-hammers and just run Zach out of resources. Because, yes, he does have some amount of recovery, but not an endless amount.
Correct.
And putting Zach on a plane where he has to go in with his Oranguru to resource manage, that just opens it up for knockouts from stuff that actually can attack on him inside.
Literally everything else on his board, right?
Exactly.
So, you know, both of them playing if they both play the Oranguru, it would make this matchup a lot more dynamic, and I feel like, you know, it would be even possible for this entire 15 minutes to take one game.
100%, and I think that's exactly how you want that game to go on both sides of the coin. You want to just grind it out, see who can kind of hit the right stuff at the right time early game, and then leverage those decision-making that you did at the early game to kind of pay dividends at the end when you are kind of in that resource management looping phase. We see a quick hit on the Tapu Koko field blower.
Solid 90 there from Zach. You know, he loses the Fighting Fury belt. Obviously, he doesn't want to see that, but the math doesn't make a lot of difference. The HP isn't super relevant yet. We did see Emmet put another double colorless energy on that benched Mewtwo, which does reopen him back up to kind of, you know, what we mentioned earlier with he's got to watch out for Zach's Mewtwo now.
Exactly. He's got to watch out for Zach's Mewtwo. It has 3 energy. That attachment, that grass attachment, really coming back to haunt Emmet on that turn 1. However, if he can pressure this Hoopa and Zach can't build another one fast enough, Zach might have to be priced into using Latios to take a knockout on that Koko and make Emmet expend even more resources to buy it back.
Yep. Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And, you know, maybe we do see the Koko here to kind of just, or the Latios to spread, you know, do 60 a pretty solid damage to the Mewtwo and clean that Koko up right on the bench.
What do you think of Emmet's play here? Retreating into Mewtwo, I guess the composition of his hand is important to note here. We can't really see based on how he's holding his cards. However, a spread, putting 20 damage everywhere seemed pretty good last turn.
Yeah, and you know, think in Zach's discard there are 2 Acerola. Maybe he's thinking, there's 2 of those in the discard. He probably doesn't have another one. I'm just gonna come up and smack this for a lot of damage and try to just get the damage on board. Keep the Coco alive. Maybe he's trying to wait for an Acerola to draw to pick it up and reset it. Just doesn't want it to get knocked out, or at least make it very difficult for Zach to take that knockout.
Correct. One of Zach's 2 Floatstones coming down that Latios, giving him what we call the pivot point, for Guzmas to be able to retreat back into the attacker he actually wants to use. Obviously, Emmet has kind of that built-in a Tapu Koko, but just in case, he's got the Floatstone on the Zoroark as well.
So it looks like Emmet's in a weird spot now here. That Mewtwo's got 80, that Coco's got 90. He kind of has to play an Acerola this turn, or that Latios is going to come in and kind of ruin his day.
Yeah, because he needs to maintain both of those Pokemon because they're legit the only ones that can attack right now. I guess we could have seen a crazy grass energy attachment on the Wimpod, which maybe I would have liked to see turn 1.
Yeah, because it could finish the Hoopa right now.
It does have a Gnaw. I believe Gnaw is the name of the attack. Yes, it's a heavy... 30 on the nose. It's a heavy energy investment. However, you can see the grass energy on that Mewtwo just haunting him right now.
I mean, it's at best doing nothing, and at worst, that Mewtwo could have taken the knockout.
Exactly. Which at this point, with Zach's inability to quickly build another Hoopa, he had to manually attach the Dark. That's not really how he drew it up. Being able to just use one attachment with a DCE to either knock out a Mewtwo, or as I mentioned before with the Latios 30-30, taking the knockout on the Coco, you've just opened up a lot of attacking related options that kind of work Zach towards the game, not only in the sense that he's taking prizes, but he's getting rid of the only attackers you have.
Yep, exactly. All right, so we do see the knockout of the Mewtwo. Oh, no, he played an Acerola. Okay, got it.
Acerola picks up the Mewtwo, finally able to salvage that grass energy.
Getting it out of there. Zach immediately pushes that Latios up, no hesitation.
He does have the Floatstone on it there. Weakness policy on Mewtwo, which you mentioned right from the top. It'll stop those air quotes Mewtwo wars. Another Hoopa in hand and a Dark Energy and an Ultra Ball.
It's actually interesting, here, because it seems like Zach would really want to use the Latios to kind of just finish the Coco on the bench. But if he puts a DC on that, then Mewtwo's going to knock it out immediately because of that Floatstone and not the weakness policy there.
Exactly, and he had, like we mentioned, he had to put that Floatstone down to give him that pivot point. You just have to have it on the board. It's one of the strengths of Hoopa, being able to cycle in. Okay, you Guzma around my Hoopa, let's get it back in the active, and you can do it that way. Giving each player... Now, he had an Ultra Ball that he could have used. He would have lost a Dark Energy. However, he would have been able to maybe bench Oranguru, Sun and Moon Oranguru, to be able to draw and kind of get at least a little bit of draw going and still end in the same turn. Do you think that's something he should have considered there?
I mean, I think at this point, so Emmet's taken 2 prizes. There are 2 more on the board. I think that he wants the Oranguru in play to draw cards because drawing cards is great, but I think he's probably more worried about actually, losing to Emmet being able to handle these 2 attacking Hoopas on board and then push through the 2 things that aren't attacking Hoopa.
That's a great point. He does need to take 4 prizes, which means you don't lose the game until you take all 6.
Yep.
So if he can only take 3 and the last things left are Hoopas, and he's already worked through the 4 puzzles, the Tapu Koko, the Mewtwo's, the DCEs, then Emmet really has no out to what's going on.
Exactly. So if he puts that Oranguru into play, then that's a 3rd thing he can take out, and suddenly he's only got to take out 1 Hoopa to win this game.
Emmet has been navigating these very rough waters incredibly well so far. Using Guzma, bringing up the Hoopa with nothing on it, starting the Coco spread, seeing maybe he can, really build up that damage for maybe a Mewtwo sweep. Or honestly, if Zach isn't proving that he can get this Hoopa out of the active, keep spreading.
I mean, I didn't see what he top decked, but I know his hand was not great. He's playing this Nest Ball. There's a Parallel City. He top decked the Gladian. And so maybe he's looking through his deck now to see if one of his Floatstones is prized. It's not very often you see someone really hope that they've got something good in their prizes.
Exactly. Emmet keeping a very solid eye on his bench. We do have an unevolved Zorua. I believe it's the Ram. which at this point, any non-GX or EX attacker,
anything that does damage,
you have to be considering those attacks. If he gets a free attachment next turn, if he happens to have a Grass Energy and a free attachment next turn, I'd love to see it go down on the win pod.
Yeah, I mean, it might as well, right? There's the floatstone. There it is in the prizes.
And with the nest ball, Zach was probably using the nest ball, confirming exactly what was in his prizes, and then saying, okay, I know my nest ball is in my prizes. Gladion is a great supporter for this turn. Let's pull that out. Let's stick back to my game plan. And Emmet kind of getting the raw end of the deal here.
Yeah, he really is. And this is always something interesting that I see. Gladion is not a card that is played very often. It's not a card you have to, it's dealt with very often. But when you shuffle Gladion into your prizes, do you offer your opponent the cut?
Every time. For somebody that's played Waylord at 3 regionals, I
expert opinion here.
Live look into Gladion, always offer the cut. Even more so, Zach has to because he's actually taking prizes. That's an evolve into the Glisopod. Going to use first impression here, knock out the Mewtwo.
The 20 making a difference here. Taking that prize where he can. It seems fine because he has it. The Mewtwo isn't doing a lot for him. I mean, it can damage, but it'll get knocked out immediately. So it's like it's in a weird spot as far as like being effective goes.
Exactly. So Zach's thinking here, just don't bench anything else.
Yep. He took the Gladion.
He got the Gladion off the prizes there. Giratina, Ultra Ball. Can't quite see that last one there.
It looks like a color. It might be one of the monkeys, one of the Orangaroos, but I'm not certain.
Looks like Ultra Ball, Gladion, and Giratina, the attacker staying in there. Again, as we mentioned, he does not want a non-Hoopa Pokemon on his bench right now because that is the only avenue of victory for Emmet is to knock out these non-Hoopas.
Yep.
So he was it?
He grabbed. He grabbed the card that wasn't Ultra Ball.
He
grabbed the one we didn't know.
Was it Parallel City?
It was not. It's not the nest ball. It was the one between those two.
They are doing a remarkable job tucking that information.
It's almost like they do it on purpose, right? It's like how can we almost tell them but mess with them a little bit,
Yeah, they're doing a great job. Consider me messed with. Nest ball failed it. Of course, that's what we expected. There are 2 Hoopas in the discard, if I'm not mistaken.
There are.
So he's just going to ride these 2 Hoopas to victory, make Emmet use his double puzzles, and hopefully run him out of resources with those 2 Hoopas.
Oh, it is the Orangaroo Sun and Moon. It was.
Which explains maybe why he didn't Ultra Ball for it the one turn I was explaining that.
Yep.
Ooh, interesting. Does Emmet have 3 prizes or 2 left?
3. So now Emmet actually only has to get through one more Hoopa.
One more Hoopa, because
assuming that he can Guzma enough times to get the
you have the double puzzle.
Yes.
If he uses those in key turns, sets up damage so he can use Ram and stuff like that. Just unorthodox things. Whoa!
That was the Ram.
A little earthquake here in Madison, Wisconsin, America's Dairyland. Little unexpected weather. So we see a Palpad. That's a great way to recover those Guzmas.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe we see an Acerola and a Guzma.
It looks like he's eyeballing one of each, yeah.
Which is a solid play because, as you mentioned, his path to victory involves both of those cards. Yep. And it involves both of those cards at least one more time each.
Yep. And I'm going to call it now. I'm going to be a little bold. When he plays his final 2 puzzles, assuming that he's got them both in the deck, it's going to be for the Palpad and the Coco. Because the Palpad's going to give him actually 2 more supporters back into the deck.
Absolutely.
So he can get the Guzma and the Acerola back again. And actually, I mean, the more I think about it, I think that's enough resources for him to win the game.
It is. On paper, it is.
On paper.
And because I'm looking through Zach's list here, and normally these Hoopa decks at least play 1 Enhanced Hammer. Yep. 0 copies today.
0 copies.
0 copies. So he won't be able to stress Emmet on multiple resource fronts. Pokemon, Supporter, and Energy, which would kind of be the triple threat to really lock him out of the game. So Emmet knowing, and if he doesn't know by now, he'll figure it out very soon.
I'm sure he's kind of, he's noticing it. He's noticing it.
Zach's gone through a lot of cards. If there was an E-Hammer somewhere, we probably would have seen it.
And that's kind of the price this Hoopa deck has paid for beating Buzzwole. It's done so much to beat Buzzwole that when you kind of think like Buzzwole's the deck to beat, you're like, oh, this is good. But then you come up against a matchup like this where you look on paper and you go, oh, Mewtwo, oh, Coco, this is going to be so easy. But you know, you don't have all of those little things that really made those easier to deal with. You know, now you have to just like two-shot them. You have to take the Coco spreads. Like you can't just E-hammer, hit, and, you know, make them dig one more card. Like you said, stressing on multiple resource fronts.
Exactly. So we see 3 manual dark attachments to the backup attacking Hoopa here. The main one with the DCE coming up, hitting into that Golisopod. DCE Field Blower.
Okay, that's good. 2 important tools.
Yeah, he's committing a lot of resources to this Golisopod, and I'm interested to see how this develops. Crossing Cut GX is a very interesting play.
Why do you think he did it? Just to get it out of the active? Do you think it was just stuck there? We know it's his only floatstone.
Right. It's honestly hard to tell. Like, your initial thought is because next turn he wants to do a Guzma play and target down one of the other Pokemon on the bench. However, if that was the case, he would have been able to free retreat with the Zoroark. I think he's just trying to protect this Golisopod. It's going to be armor pressing, probably on the Oranguru and the Latios to maybe mitigate some of the damage coming back to it. It's kind of hard to tell.
Something, Armor Press does 100, correct?
It does 100 and then prevents, I think it's 20 back.
Yeah.
20 back, correct.
He's got to be a little careful of that parallel city that Zach has in play, because with only doing 100, it won't knock out the Oranguru, but it could knock out the Latios, but not with that parallel facing that direction.
So I believe Zach is actually limiting Emmet's bench.
Oh, got it.
Yep.
It's the bench, not the damage side.
Correct.
Okay. Well then, he's
blue
fine.
for bench. Blue for bench.
Hey, I've never ever thought of that, and I've been playing that card for years. So I'm gonna remember that forever and ever now.
We did it, folks. We mentally leveled up here in Madison, Wisconsin.
That's what we're here for. You know, giving you guys really that next level analysis to take you there. So
if you didn't learn anything, you at least learn blue for bench.
Blue for bench.
Zach goes for the Cynthia, 6 cards. Going to see what he can cobble together here. We see an energy that went down, the Psychic, that we were talking about, onto Latios, and that's for that second attack, which probably carried him through a lot of his Buzzwole matchups.
Sure it did. You know, 70, it's a very good number off a Psychic Pokemon. It's a choice band away from doing 200 that knocks out Baby Buzzwole out the choice band, knocks out the GX with it. You know, it seems like, you know, kind of we were talking about where Pokemon's good at designing cards. It seems like that Latios was like low-key supposed to be very good against Buzzwole.
Yep, and it's pulling weight. We see Zach counting his deck here. Maybe concerned that he might not be able to close the door on this thing before he runs out of cards. And if he has to put down the Ultra Prism Oranguru, that is Emmet's third prize that he can take with Zoroark or Golisopod.
If that goes down, Emmet only needs to play 3 Guzmas. You know, he does not have to touch another Hoopa if that hits the board, which I'm sure he would love to deal with.
And we double puzzle
Here they
number
are,
2.
the last
Here we go.
2. Let's see if it's going to be what I called earlier. Oh,
Thunderous double puzzle coming down, shaking the whole camera here. DCE Palpad, was that what's pulled to the front?
Yeah, he pulled the DCE to the front, which is an interesting choice.
Coco and DCE.
Coco and
interesting.
DCE. He must think he has the supporters to pull it out. You know, he's like, I've got it. You know, maybe he thinks, the Coco is going to get 2 attacks off. That's going to put both the Hoopas at 60. I've blowered away a few Fury Belts.
Yep.
I'm inning him to low. I'll get to knock out one of these.
Yeah, we did see Zach have to use a Sycamore to get rid of a Fury Belt early. We've gone through a couple he's knocked out. He's Field Blowered off, as you mentioned. So 3 Fighting Fury Belts in the deck. We've gone through 3 Fighting Fury Belts.
3. Emmet, it feels like he's in a good spot. I think that the way Zach locks the win up is he needs to hit Guzma this turn or next turn, because Emmet needs 1 more spread for the Mewtwo to clean up.
Yep. So do you think if he has the Guzma, he immediately uses his 4 damage, the Hoopa with 4 damage on it, 40 damage on it, excuse me, and pulls up the Mewtwo, takes that knockout there?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, because, you know, he can kind of see where Emmet's going. He knows Emmet wants 1 more spread. He knows that Emmet wants to take 1 knockout with that Mewtwo, and then Guzma twice.
Okay, I don't know what's happening right now. Emmet is... Oh no! Oh no!
Oh, he double puzzled.
He double puzzled, and he lined them up. And we thought he benched it. When he got them, he benched it. And I think the table judge is saying, when you puzzle, they go to your hand,
Yeah.
and you play to N.
Oh, got it. You're
So
right.
a little bit of a sequencing error there for Emmet. Maybe tried to shortcut, but didn't enunciate properly.
Yep.
It felt like both the players understood what was going on.
Yep.
However, in these games, the floor judge has the final ruling,
Yep.
and the judge says puzzle reads go to your hand, not wherever you choose to.
Yeah.
And Emmet, that's got to hurt Emmet.
Yep.
He's got a lot of time invested in this round, and was within reason of closing this thing out.
Yeah. So maybe, I mean, looking at Zach's list, we saw how many Ace roll. I'm pretty sure he's gone through both of them.
Yep.
So maybe there's a world. Yeah. So maybe there's a world where Mewtwo just comes up and just does the damage here, or I mean, he does have that Ace roll in his deck. We saw him Pal Pad. Maybe he wants to wait. The Golisopod in the active is an interesting choice because it's the attacker, right? Like you think he would just leave the Zoroark, but maybe he just doesn't want it to take damage.
Yeah, it's kind of a critical mass on both. Something that we embarrassingly, or not we, Kirk, Dupes Next Day missed, is embarrassingly enough, blue for bench.
Yep.
His bench is limited.
Yeah.
That's why he
wasn't
can't
able
put
to
it
bench
down.
the Coco, yeah, that's why he was
So
stuck with
mystery
it.
solved. Sherlock
Yep.
Holmes and Watson do it again. We see an energy attachment to a Rangaroo.
That's 120 on the Golisopod. That's a knockout.
Ooh, nice. Weakness policy, instruct for 1.
Getting that out of the deck, he doesn't need it.
Yep. His deck is getting thin, however, the end maybe beefed that up a little bit.
Oh, maybe he just doesn't want to put it in the active, the Oranguru. He's like, it's fine.
The Floatstone is gone off that off his Hoopas now. That was the one I believe that had the Floatstone. The other one had the Fighting Fury belt, if I recall correctly. Maybe he doesn't want to sacrifice the energy to get that Oranguru in the active.
Maybe I'm sure he's very good count on his resources. He knows I can't lose this DC.
Exactly, and to the point you made earlier, he can't bench the other Oranguru because that's the 3 prizes Emmet would need to just take it by dodging all the Hoopas.
Yep.
Key Acerola turd here, not the Pokemon he probably wanted to use that on.
It's not,
he wanted to be using that on Coco and Mewtwo.
Yep. See, that's why I was thinking, maybe you just leave the Zoroark in the active because you want to attack with the Golisopod, so you just kind of like, all right, I'm going to sit on this for a minute.
We do see the Wimpod come down,
Yep.
kitting itself up for a heavy gnaw.
Oh, heavy gnaw. Yeah. So Gnaw actually does 30 damage if I remember correctly, which is just short of getting the knockout on that Hoopa. It's just short. So Emmet's going to need to fall back into that Coco play, I think, and I think that's his out, is he has to just go for that. He has to let the Mewtwo get knocked out so that he has a free bench spot, and then look for it. I mean, this N is not the worst thing in the world. He didn't have the Coco in hand, so maybe he can switch that up now.
Yeah, I mean, he does have a trade available to him. Zach's draw support Pokemon, to be honest, not as good as Zoroark.
No.
Not
much is.
Yeah, that's true. Emmet gets to thin the bad cards out and really just roar through his deck to get to those things he's actually looking for.
Yep.
Instruct, on the other hand, it's just not as sexy.
It's not. It really isn't. He's low maintenance. He's just a little monkey. You toss one in your deck, you put him on your bench. He's there. But Zoroark's your ride or die.
Exactly. Exactly. We see both players utilizing Pal Pad today, and both of them bought back a Guzma and Acerola.
Yep.
So definitely putting stress on avoiding those knockouts and be able to target down the things that accrue damage over time.
Yep. They're playing a very similar game. They're both looking to do a lot of the same things, and it's all focused on getting these Nani X's, and so it looks like we're gonna see the knockout here. So
Super Psy Bolt coming through, another KO for Zach. We are now 20 minutes left in the round, and this has been a marathon game.
Oh yeah.
To Emmett's credit, a lot longer than I thought.
Oh yeah.
Maybe it deserved to be on paper.
Yeah, exactly. We kind of walked into this thinking, he's gonna get 2-0'd in 15 minutes, but it goes to show, Emmett's really doing what he can to find those outs, and he's doing a pretty good job so far.
Yep, he's really earned that 5-1-1 record, clearly. Both players skillful, understand their decks in and out. And Emmet kind of seemed unfazed by the Hoopa, just like, all right, this. It's an unorthodox game plan, but this is what I'm going with.
I've read this card. I know what it does. It's fine.
I do not want to see the evolution in the Golisopod right now. Guzma helps, but...
He's taking out the Oranguru here.
Guzma helps, but it's not the end-all, be-all.
Yep.
all 4 puzzles are gone from Emmet. You know, he's not going to be able to, as you said, pal pad and get back. That's kind of the repercussion of not running Super Rod or Rescue Stretch or anything like that.
Yep.
You know, when you have to puzzle for Pokemon, it's underwhelming.
It limits what you can do because you know, puzzling for those Pokemon. There's you know, you only got so many puzzles. You can't use them all.
Zach brings the Latios up with the Float Stone, promptly retreats into the less damaged Hoopa.
Very smart. You know, he's thinking, I need to put this one up. You know, he doesn't know Emmett's list. He doesn't know what Emmet can get into. You know, he doesn't want anything coming out of the woodworks and catching him off guard.
Yeah, maybe Emmet's kind of showing a poker face. You know, Zach's maybe thinking, okay, he doesn't have the Oranguru yet, but he's been aggressively going after prizes and using resources to do that. So maybe he's trying to dig to it. Here we'll see a Bridget, which is going to grab the Tapu Koko, something that he wished he had on the board about 3 turns earlier when he puzzled for it.
You know, it really seemed like, had he known that the parallel needed moving, you know, maybe he couldn't have moved it so it didn't matter, but, you know, it really seemed like had that spread been able to go off there, he was in a position to lock the game up.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly a step closer than he is right now.
Oh, yeah.
We see, I think that Mew EX is going to be trade fodder here.
Yep.
Acerola rolling off the top, and I think a Sycamore.
All right, so if you're Emmet, I guess you're passing here. You know, there's not a whole lot else you can do. And actually, Zach has a Guzma in hand. So if he Guzmas up that Koko and hits it once, ooh, he's conceding.
So he's scooping it up here, and let's talk a little something about that scoop. 17 minutes left. Maybe thinking if I get lucky, Zach starts one of his non-Hoopas, and I can gun it down really quick. I might be able to, you know, sneak a draw out of what is normally a subpar matchup. Do you think, given the moment the Tapu Koko, like he thought he could have it in play, but it was shuffled into his deck, is that where you would have scooped?
Probably. I mean, I can see a world where he's like, no, it's fine. I just got to do it in a backwards order where I Mewtwo and then I Koko twice. But, you know, that Golisopod in the active, I mean, you know, it just, a lot of weird things kind of fell together. Like, you know, he Acerolled that Golisopod up, like leaving it active. Like, you know, the Golisopod was stuck there, and it just, like I think that after that, you know, there were a couple little things that maybe could have gone right, but they just didn't. So it's like there was something to hold on to if A, B, and C happens, but like A didn't even happen, so B and C weren't even close, right?
I agree. I would have been just me personally, my play style, kind of how I approach things. Once I made the unfortunate Koko-related blunder, I would have picked him up immediately because without that, he only had 1 trade accessible, which makes sense because you don't want to saturate your board with Zoroark GXs, right? Which is just easy prizes for the Hoopa, more retreats you have to do. He still kind of had a big deck, and he needed to dig to it. So I would have liked to see the scoop a little earlier there. I think up until that point, Emmet was doing phenomenal.
Yeah. I think, I mean, he played it very well. Like every out he had, you know, bringing things up, spread. You know, really seemed like he was in a position to pull it off. But this quad Hoopa deck is just so difficult to beat when you don't have a lot of tools to mess with.
Exactly. When you don't have the resources, it's incredibly bizarre to try to work around. A lot of benching for the first turn of the game. I would have liked to see him hold on to that, depending on what his draw step was.
He's going first anyway, right? There's no downside to holding them.
Exactly. You know, maybe he's thinking, okay, Ram, you know, set up 1 Zoroark GX again, set one up for Ram, you know, Grass Energy Wimp out. He's kind of got the same start as he did last game. But I think he's equipped with a little bit better knowledge on how to approach it. Now, exactly what I was talking about, Zach started Latios.
Yep.
If his hand is anything like that first game, we might see just a quick knockout.
Yep.
And we're moving on to game 3.
Man, Emmet's got to be hoping. Fingers crossed. Just please, just pass.
Bead of sweat rolling down his face, heart pounding in his chest.
So to touch on last game a little bit, we did see Emmet only set up the 1 Zoroark GX. I feel like there were a couple times he's got a 0 on his bench that he did not evolve to the other GX. Do you think he should have been trying to set up more so he had more trades throughout the game?
I think Emmet might have been a little locked into the mindset that I had when we were discussing this game is I might just need to ram. And I'm not willing to sacrifice my ability to ram.
Yep.
We have a little. We have a little question from the table here.
So it looks like we've had an insufficient randomization issue. I did not. So was that? I think it was off the Bridget.
I think it was off the Bridget.
Maybe
however,
he just didn't shuffle enough. They're like, hey, what are you doing?
Kind of an interesting scenario, and I'm sure we'll get the resounding feedback in the chat, and when we get to watch the VOD or what have you. I guess if they're appealing to the head judge, maybe we can throw it back to us in the booth, and we can talk about this a little bit rather than awkwardly watching some hands. But it seems like we've got Jeff here. If just speak to us real quick, give us the skinny.
Hey, how's it going? Put it on camera. So, quick little scope there. What's the names of the decks? Because I didn't see it. Was Emmet Hurley on his side got a penalty for double randomization, which results in 2 prize penalty. He's currently appealing to the head judge, and that's what the delay is right now currently.
Okay, great. So something that we saw in Roanoke and something that we're experiencing today is strict policing of shuffling techniques used when on stream.
Yep.
I know in Roanoke we not only had a table judge that was watching the match, but we had a shuffling judge keeping time and watching each player shuffle.
Wow.
Kind of pulling double, I believe it's Corey is the judge back there today, pulling double duty for us and really keeping an eye on that. He saw something suspect was up. He brought it up, and I believe Emmet is appealing to the head judge right now as to the concern of the sufficient randomization.
Makes sense.
Anything you can highlight on this match while we're resolving this judge call here?
I mean, really, you know, the most important thing we can see right now, Emmett's going first. He wants to do that, get his stuff, you know, just get everything going first. It's, you know, he's got both of his non-EXs, so he's got those outs there. I mean, really, what I think we'll want to see is a Wimp out back to the... Going back to the Coco is even a little interesting here because of the Latios start. You know, like we talked, that could end up causing him a lot of trouble if he can just turn 2, knock it out, it's his only Pokemon. But at the same time, it can attack for 1 attachment. So normally you run away to the Coco, but if he does that, he can go 30-30 on both of the non-EXs, and that actually sets them both up to get knocked out very well by the attacking Hoopa and by the Mewtwo's. So, you know, it's a little tricky.
Real quick, the rule was upheld. It's still going to do with 2 prizes, and they're getting played back right now.
Okay, great.
All right, so it looks like Emmet received a 2 prize penalty for some insufficient randomization. So as we mentioned, the update to the rules, Zach will not be taking 2 prizes. He just has to take 2 less now to win the game.
Fun fact about that, when I was on stream round 3 in Roanoke, I was playing Waylord, of all things, and I actually got awarded a 2 prize penalty. However, Waylord, one of the only decks in existence that can't leverage that advantage.
You know, and like, even if like something egregious happens and they get like the 4 prize penalty, you're still just like...
I'm still just, okay,
all
cool.
right, man.
That was the one time I was like, well, I wish I could just grab those prizes.
Yeah. Like, yeah, that's the only time that's worse. Like, I wish I could just have those cards.
Exactly
and be
right.
Fine. Like,
exactly right. We see we're updating our layout here to reflect that Zach does need to take 2 less prizes. However, since the prizes aren't physically taken, we're going to leave those little pips, little Pokeball pips filled. We see Zach being able to attach his 1 Psychic Energy to his Latios and Ultra Ball and a Hoopa, so no fear of just getting his 1 non-Scoundrel guarded Pokemon, Scoundrel guarded Pokemon knocked out.
Say that 3 times fast.
I can't say it.
I won't even try.
I can't say it 1 time tepid, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. We see Evo Soda coming up. Emmet evolving 1, evolving 2. To your point, maybe he just wants to motor through some cards.
Yeah.
Field Blower using 1 kind of willy-nilly in the first game denied him the ability to bounce that Parallel City later on in the game, which, as we know, was very costly.
Crucial. I mean, that's I would argue that's probably why he lost that game. You know, I mean, he got rid of the Fury Belt and that Float Stone, but in hindsight, Fury Belt and the Parallel City, I guess, would have been 2 great options. You know, better even. Exactly,
especially because at that time Zach had at least the hard retreat availability.
Correct.
And when we say hard retreat, of course, we mean actually paying the energy cost to retreat.
Correct. Yes. So, I mean, you know, like both Hoopas had 3 energy. The Latios didn't have anything on it at the time, but it retreats for 1. So Emmet just wanted to take the pivot point away, but at that point, the pivot point isn't as critically needed because it's kind of like we know what Zach's doing. We know what his game plan is. He's attacking with these. The pivot points are very crucial when there are options available, when there are a lot of things you could do, but kind of at that point, both players, their decks are very thin, very small, so kind of what they want to do and what they were going to do was mapped out and obvious, and so, the pivot point wasn't as critical.
Yep, exactly. We see Zach contemplating the float stone on the Hoopa. Much rather see a Fighting Fury Belt going on the big boy here while he's super side bolting. So we see kind of plays it down, pulls it back, goes, let's see what Max Elixir does first, and maybe adjust our decision making from there.
So, if Zach draws a double colorless energy here, do you think he should go for the 70 attack on Latios, or do you think he should go for the attacking Hoopa? Maybe he just does 30-30.
I think it really depends what the rest of his hand look like. He manually attached to the Latios.
Okay.
Maybe he is going to just start 30-30ing. Weakness
I like
policy is very nice there. As we know, the Latios is as well psychic weak. So here's Latios coming in. He's going to try and bully that Mewtwo around.
This is good. This is I mean, 60 to that. He can't hit him for weakness back. And Emmet did just use a field blower. He has 3, but he just used 1, so he's got to find another, and he's got to find a double colorless energy.
Exactly, which raises the question of concern is, has he been strategically using his field blowers, and would he consider that now that he knows how many things can impact his board? Weakness policy, Parallel City, Fighting Fury Belts, Float Stones.
The second one out already.
Goes in. Interesting. Acerola to recycle that DCE so Mewtwo can start putting pressure.
Did he use trades? I don't think he used trades, did he?
He didn't use trades. However, he was able to field blower the weakness policy to take that knockout on Latios.
Cool.
And where does that leave us? 1 Hoopa.
1 Hoopa. I mean, it seems like it's a common theme with this deck. He's like, he kind of looks. He knows the deck. Zach knows decks pretty well, and he can't knock this out.
Yep.
Why not let this be my only Pokemon in play for at least a turn?
Without seeing Zach's hand here, perfect world. He gets another Hoopa down. Max Elixir DCE starts attacking, and that way he's kind of all kitted up for the future turns. Emmet still kind of has to grind through it all.
All right, interesting. So we see Zach playing his Super Rod and then discarding the Resource Management Oranguru. I think he only plays the 1 recovery card. So he has a stretcher. So it kind of at that point, I was afraid that completely locking him out of the resource management for the whole game could be a little dangerous.
Yep.
But we do see that it's still an option if he can find the stretcher.
Absolutely. We see the manual attachment come down on the Hoopa here. No DCE, no sense in trying to slow build up a Hoopa because he has that Sycamore and drawing 7. He's got a decent probability of just hitting that DC, so it's better to spread that love around. We see the Instructor Oranguru coming down. At least he'll be able to chip away at his deck 1 to 2 in miracle scenarios, 3 cards at a time.
Yep. And sometimes that's all it needs. It just needs that one extra, a tool, or maybe it just needs like 1 out of like 4 different cards, so it draws 3, just hits 1 of them, and it can do something, right? So
Max Elixir. This is almost exactly what I was describing on what would a perfect turn would be. If he hits this, he's in great shape. But we do see 2 DCEs and that Psychic Energy coming down. Hoopa playing multiple roles. He's like, I'll take a Dark Energy, but I'll take a purple one too to match what I look like.
He's not greedy, he only needs 1 Dark Energy to party. He's just like, those 2 are colorless. I'll take whatever you've got. He's not a picky guy.
That makes his next turn Sycamore even better. Darkness or a DCE, and he can start attacking, which is nice.
Yeah, but with the way his energy is set up, anything gives him an attack. It's going to be very, very difficult for him to miss.
We see Emmet trading away some resources here.
Ditched an Ultra Ball for a trade. It seems like he has a DC in his hand.
Yep.
I think here you kind of want to see an Acerola. You want to see the Mewtwo move is the moral of the story, and I think this is great. That Oranguru gets stuck. Zach's only got a 2-card hand.
One thing to kind of look at Zach's Pokemon, Hoopa is heavy. Orangaroos are heavy and really stresses the Floatstones, Guzmas, and the Acerolas to get those out of the active. Which for Zach, with only being able to draw a card a turn, that might not be as evident as you'd think.
Yep.
However, and next to that Sycamore is in fact a Guzma, and no beat missed in this turn here.
Oh no. So Zach's gonna take a knockout in this Mewtwo. Huge. I mean, the Mewtwo is not great against attacking Hoopa. The Koko by itself is not great against attacking Hoopa. But these two seemingly are working like well together. You know, kind of like soften up, finish. They both need to get 2 shots. So, you know, Emmet needs one and the other to make them both very good. And so losing that Mewtwo means now he's got to find puzzles. Now he's got to put it back in play. So just getting that prize is very, very good for Zach right now.
And again, stressing his resources on multiple levels, the Pokemon, the DCEs, you know, that stresses the puzzles, which is his only form of recovery.
Yep.
And it really makes it difficult for him to navigate these rough waters.
Oh, yeah.
We see a trade here. I think Azuru went down. Tapu Lele.
We see a Wonder Tag. All right, I think maybe just another Guzma, honestly. You know, he's just, he's like, oh, Zach Guzman it out of there. Maybe I'll Guzman it back up, you know?
Yep.
I'm going to make you find that Floatstone.
Guzma it is.
Yep.
Emmett really hoping he has access to Palpad for the later game.
Yep.
Again, one less type of resource stressed by his puzzles to try and to take a win here. 4 minutes, 30 seconds left in the round. Pace of play, honestly, between both players has been great.
Yeah.
However, just the dichotomy of this matchup is making it a little bit tougher to close out games.
Yeah, it's very long games, you know. Like, every once in a while in Pokemon, you just have matches like that. They're like, try your hardest. There are 50 minutes, and we can't do it, you know?
Emmet is trying his darndest here, using that flying flip to stack damage everywhere. And hopefully he can buy back that Mewtwo and do something with that. If you take a look at his bench, though, he's pretty susceptible to Parallel City. We know 2 Field Blowers have gone down, and when you have to puzzle for a Field Blower on top of all the other stuff that you still need to buy back, it's tough.
It's hard to get it all, and that's why we saw the loss in the first game. And you know, a pretty common strategy, right, with like a Parallel City is so popular, it's so good. Is like, I'll play mine, and now you can't parallel me. Emmett's not playing Parallel City. So he can't.
That's very interesting based on the weekend. I would have said, if you would have asked me before this tournament started, what's the hottest card you would play in your deck and you wouldn't leave home without? And no matter what I would have sleeved up, I can guarantee you is playing minimum 2 Parallel City. Yeah. Everything is so bench hungry right now. Your Malamar decks, your Beast Box decks, other Zoroark decks. Everything.
Buzzwole but Buzzwole doesn't rely on the bench early, but mid-game, they've usually got 5 Pokemon on their bench that they like to have on their bench, you know?
Yeah, you got your Diancie, your backup Buzzwole, maybe a Lele if you had to put one down, you know? Your Octillery, and that clogs up very quickly.
So, what do you think about using the DC to retreat here? I actually think that he should have just left it in the active and then just attached an energy to it and started attacking with it. Because if I'm Emmet, I'm thinking, oh, you DC retreated that. That's kind of cool. I'm just going to Guzman it up again.
You know, it is an interesting thought exercise there. I think the reason you want to get it out is you want to make him make plays to take a KO on it. Because that, you know, if he has another DC in hand or Grass Energy Golisopod, he can just free retreat, knock it out, and then you're like, well, I could have been applying pressure to this Tapu Koko instead. Yep.
And something that as soon as I said that, I thought about, Emmet plays Enhanced Tamer. You know, if he doesn't retreat it, then he could just get stuck. He loses energy, gets absolutely no value out of it, basically throwing it in the discard himself, you know.
Absolutely.
So the Enhanced Tamer makes, like, it's no longer an option, I think, to leave it up there sitting like that.
No, that's a great point. I think, what do you think about the weakness policy going down on Orangaroo when maybe you could have put it down on the Mewtwo when that Psychic weakness might actually be relevant because we know the contents of Emmett's deck?
Yeah, and like, one, like, I agree with that for that reason, and an additional reason is, I mean, Emmett's already Guzman that Orangaroo up twice. He clearly he enjoys leaving that in the active.
Yep.
Now there's a weakness policy on it. Zach can't put a Floatstone on it.
Exactly.
So, like, not only is it not good there, it's also blocking a Floatstone.
we're gonna see Emmet Wonder Tag for that Acerola. Gonna most likely pick up that Tapu Koko, promote the Zoroark with the Float Stone, retreat back into it, and just send up a fresh Tapu Koko and say, all right, let's keep spreading, boys.
Spreading. And, you know, I think this is kind of what Emmet wanted to see last game, too, is, you know, he just Acerola, spread, and it's getting to the point now where both of those Hoopas have 60 or more damage, you know, that the third one is starting to get to 20, you know. If Emmet can actually just keep Koko spreading here, there's a world where he knocks that active one out with the spread while setting the rest of them up to be knocked out as well.
Exactly. However, Emmet stressing the fourth different type of resource in this game, bench space.
Oh, yeah.
And he's going to have to get knocked out somewhere to be able to free up the room for that Mewtwo to maybe come in and take some big knockouts.
Yep, you're right.
There's just so many angles that Emmet has to consider here, and so many different things that he has to navigate to try and even give himself an opportunity to win.
Yep.
And Zach, again, on the other side, is just like, please just let me draw normal. Just let me draw normal.
I'm trying to say Super Cybolt every turn. And that's
all right. Blue for bench. Zach dumping his Oranguru. Removing some damage from the board. But what he did do there is he knows Emmet went through 2 Field Blower. He now knows, he didn't want to remove anything from Emmet's bench and then have him Field Blower that Parallel City and then get all those bench spots back. As I just mentioned, that's another level of resource that's being stressed right now. We see the Fighting Fury belt come down, and Hoopa's going to be Super Psy-bolting to the finish line.
It is. So, all right, we see him draw. So, Emmet actually has some interesting choices. He has at least 3 puzzles in his hand, so, you know, he's got a lot of things he can do, but it's, you know, what is he going to do?
Right. Zach, a very heads-up play, understands how good the blue for bench side was last game, recognizing that this game, the opposite of that would be much more beneficial for him, understanding that Emmet does need that open bench spot to get a Mewtwo down and be able to take knockouts that way.
So I think that the play here has to be, I mean,
can we ask what those boys are doing at that table to rattle it like that?
Oh, the third Field Blower. That's super key. So I think that the play here is double puzzle, Acerola, Mewtwo, pick up the Koko, free retreat, back to the Mewtwo, take the knockout.
All right. I think I just saw the judge's hands come in.
That's time. Emmet sees the writing on the wall.
Yep. He can't take 5 prizes in 2 turns, especially when there's no GX Pokemon on Zach's side. So,
all right,
what a matchup, man. What a matchup.
Wild. I mean, Zach Lesage takes the win here, and, you know, he's moving on to 6-1-1 with this quad-attacking Hoopa deck. You know, he had to work for it. You know, this wasn't quite the cakewalk that we thought it was going to be. You know, Emmet really took him to the wire.
Yeah, for sure. Emmet kind of pulling out all the stops.
Oh, yeah.
Pulling all the tricks out of his sleeve just to try and get to the finish line. Yep. Unfortunately, that kind of mishap game 1, a weird start to game 2, and kind of put Emmet in a precarious position. And unfortunately, he doesn't come out ahead on this one. But Zach, with that very interesting attacking Hoopa deck with weakness policy, able to pull it out. So we will get kitted up for a winner's interview, and we will be right back. Somebody's going to go grab him, I hope, while we are in front of you right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, this quad Hoopa deck, you know, I feel like everyone kind of thought it was a one-hit wonder, right? It's like one of those decks that comes out of nowhere. It does well once, and people are like, all right, we know how to do this now. But it's cool to see what appeared to be such a linear concept of wall, like doing, you know, sticking true to its like old like wall, but like innovating for the meta. You know, the weakness policies to me are so cool. You know, just the little changes in the deck, and it's immediately good again. Like it's.
Yeah, and you know, it might be a flash in the pan for this tournament here, but if the flash in the pan gets you a win, at the end of the day, you did your job. Yep. Great analysis by knowing that weakness policy, which historically reactive tools in a field blower meta is no bueno, but Buzzwole decks cutting the field blowers, and that opens up that door and makes those weakness policies carry a little bit more weight.
And you know, it's always amazing to see, you know, he had that foresight to, 1, realize that weakness policy could be effective, and 2, realize none of these Buzzwole decks are playing field blower, so that led him to 3, this reactive tool works and it fits and it's going to be great. And as we've seen, it's doing work.
Exactly. With the 2 weakness policy, though, I can understand how it doesn't carry you the full distance against the Xander version of the deck, the Jimmy Pendarvis version of Buzzwole, with 3 baby Buzzwole and a Super Rod. That's an endless train of those, and you can work through a couple weakness policies with that.
That is quite literally 6 of them. Like, theoretically, they have to take 6 prizes on 6 baby Buzzwoles.
Even though it's not hitting for weakness, the damage boosts, the damage modifiers that fighting currently has, can still make short work of a Hoopa dealing non-weakness damage. Still wondering if we're going to get Zach over here for a winner's interview.
Maybe he's packing his stuff up, his Hoopas are taking a bit.
And this just in, no player interview.
No player interview this round.
So what we will do, we will throw it to some commercials. If you want to see or tweet or interact with us on social media, #PlayDDG. And we will see you right back here with the final round. It'll be my friend, the ventriloquist dummy himself, little Russell Lepar, and we'll be was it? Well, whatever. Puns are lost. It's a long day. I thought I was going to be clever, and it just and out.
Every once in a while, you can't keep it going all day. It's swing and a miss every once in a while. The players do it. We do it. It happens.
It happens. Stay tuned. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back with round 9 shortly.